and we started using G Suite, the Google tools, probably about 4 years ago. During which time I've managed to follow the Google certification trail and just being qualified as a Google certified trainer, which does mean that I should know what I'm doing when I'm speaking to people like this, but I'm not a very confident public speaker, so please be gentle with me and I'll be gentle with you. All right. I'm not sponsored in any way by Google. However, if anybody is related to Google in any way and wants to pay me money to do this kind of thing, I'll be more than happy to accept it. Okay, so the school that I work in is a secondary school, relatively normal. We teach years 7 to 11, and we are situated slap bang in a very deprived area of Rochdale. So we are in the bottom 10% of the deprivation index. We have difficulties relating to that. Obviously Rochdale has been well publicised in terms of some of the difficulties that we've faced. We have about 800 students, although that's due to increase to 1,200 in the next 3 or 4 years. And probably most relevant to what I'm talking about today is that we operate a multi-platform experience at work. So we have a mixture of Windows machines, of Macs, of iPads, and of Chromebooks. And that leads in really into one of the reasons why we decided to use Google. So what was the problem? We were told in about 2008, I think, by the government that every school had to have a VLE. So every school bought a VLE because that's what they had to do. Some of them were good, some of them were not so good. Some schools took them on well. Some schools didn't really harness the power of VLEs. I would like to say that, we bought into a certain VLE that you may be able to guess what it is from looking at the slides, I'm not sure. And it was one of the better ones that were available at the time. But we found that we were working for the VLE rather than the VLE was working for us, and there's a few nods in the room. I think that's relatively typical. Not every school has those problems, but we certainly did. The staff found using the VLE quite difficult, quite clunky. They were replicating steps over and over and over again, which meant that, quite understandably, they didn't use it. I was once told that you can do a lot of things with teachers, but you can't do anything to them. And that's pretty true, I think. Our remote file access was unreliable, I would say. It was, again, awkward for staff to use. They could access a remote share, but then they had to download files and work on them and then upload them back up to the remote share again. And sometimes they'd get there and they were there waiting for them when they got in there in the morning, and sometimes they wouldn't. So we really needed something that was going to be more reliable, something that was going to provide all the missing services that we hadn't incorporated into our VLE at the beginning. We needed a decent intranet as well. Our learning resources site was okay. Again, it was built using widgets, and sometimes things would display correctly, sometimes they wouldn't. And we were just finding that with the different infrastructure of devices that we had both in school and teachers' devices at home, we were having problems. So we decided, let's squash the frog, which we did. And we decided to replace it with whatever we could do that was going to do specialist jobs better. So that was our intention when we started this. We were also going through a process which may be familiar to schools in this area, BSF. Has anybody been through that in this area? No, lucky you. So BSF was a rebuilding programme that the government initiated, and it took us 5 years to recover from it, if I'm honest. We've now got a newer, more flimsy building for us to maintain, and we were given some new equipment, and a little bit of that we even had a choice in what we had in terms of IT. So we inherited from BSF a bit of a mishmash. So during that process, when I was busy sitting on various panels to do with the building of that, we also decided to squash the frog. So the planning for this was rubbish, if I'm honest. And that's one of the things that we really would learn going forward, is that if you're going to do something like this, have a plan for it. We didn't, and we suffered as a result of it. But we decided, like I say, that we were going to find replacements for all the different things on our VLE that we weren't happy with, which was pretty much everything. the first thing we started looking at was shared calendars and resource booking, because it just didn't work for us on the previous one, and that's what led me to look at it was Google Apps at the time. So Google Calendar was the solution that we chose to use, and that really started the ball rolling into using the whole Google ecosystem. At the time, like I say, this is about 4 years ago, Office 365 was either not around or in its infancy, or you had to pay for it. My business manager quite likes me because I don't pay for anything that I don't have to. I try to save money rather than spend money. So that might become obvious with what I'm talking about today. So Google, the price, the bottom one, was really attractive because it was free and remains free. In terms of financial aspects anyway, some may argue that we're selling the souls of our children, but hey, they've got loads of children coming through, they don't really matter, do they? It was also really flexible. We could use it anywhere where you've got an internet connection. You could then connect to the resources that we wanted to share. You didn't have to have special software loaded onto your laptop. You didn't even have to have a laptop. You could use mobile devices, you could use iPads, you could use an internet cafe in the Bahamas if you really wanted to do your planning that way. And it was also really familiar to people who were using Microsoft Office, because all the icons just look like they've been stolen from Microsoft, and it may be that they have, who knows. It's consistent. It's what we refer to as platform agnostic. It doesn't care what you're using to access it, it will just work. So it will work on your phone. These are my notes. I'm not checking the cricket scores or text message or anything like that. These are my notes, and this is all running on Google technology, as is the presentation here. So Google have got essentially an Office replacement, Microsoft Office replacement. So they've got Google Docs in place of Microsoft Word. They've got Google Sheets in place of Excel, Google Slides in place of PowerPoint. And again, they're all free, which I like. And it also really allowed us to investigate better collaboration. So at the center of everything to do with G Suite is a product called Google Drive. So you may be familiar with OneDrive, with Dropbox, things like that, cloud-based storage. Google Drive is the Google version of that. And it's really, really powerful in allowing teachers and support staff and anybody in school to share content with each other, both in school and externally. Dead easy, a really simple concept to get your head around. Even teachers can do it, it's brilliant. So the only cost that has come in for our use of Google in the last 4 years has been the certification of the staff. So at the moment we have, my team is myself and 2 technicians. So we've all done our Google Admin certification and our Google Educator certification, so we know a little bit more now about how teachers think. And I've also done the Google Trainer certification. So the Google Admin exam, all the courses are free. The exam to become a Google Certified Administrator is $100. So at the time that I did it, it was about 68 quid, something like that. The educator badges are $10 and $25, so we're trying to put all our teachers through Google Certified Educator programs now. So for $10, what we're talking nowadays about 8 quid, you've got a program of study for your teachers or anybody in school who wants to do it with a tangible result at the end of it. And then the level 2 educator, which gets really into the power use of these tools, costs $25 for the exam. But again, the course itself is free. So I think we've spent as a school in total on transforming our processes about 600 quid so far. We will spend a bit more when more teachers go through the certifications, but at 8 quid a teacher, it's less than a box of pencils sometimes, isn't it? So that has been the only costs that we've had to put into place. Okay. Just before I jump off there, I mentioned that G Suite is a replacement for Microsoft Office tools. It also provides you access to things like forms. So if anybody used SurveyMonkey or things like that, it's all embedded into Google and it all works through the same sharing mechanism. And that's what's been really, really powerful for us, in terms of getting our teachers skilled up, and anybody in the school skilled up. Once you learn one aspect of it, it's pretty much consistent through all aspects of Google. So the experience, the user interface is all very familiar, and the ability to transfer the concepts from one product to another is very natural. So using Google Forms has been very powerful. We've had teachers getting the kids using Google Forms to do, I don't know, you all look too young. When I was growing up, there was these things called choose your own adventure books, where you'd open a book and you'd read a passage, and then it would say, if you want to do this, go to this page. If you want to do that, go to the other page. And basically it's a tree structure of a story. And we've been doing that in English, and there's been some really fabulous things coming out of that with the kids just using Google Forms. So if you want, this is a story, if you want to do this, click on this button, and it takes them through to it. And it's just been things like that I'd never even think about using a form for in the past. Has been really interesting to see that in use in the classroom. I also mentioned at the beginning that we started using it because of the calendar functionality. So that's central to our school calendar is now all shared on a Google Calendar, as are our exam calendars, as are our teachers' timetables. They all get populated onto a Google Calendar for them. And it's also central to our resource booking now. We have a Google site, which is the other thing I'm about to speak to, which teachers use to book rooms, to book minibuses, to book IT resources. All that kind of thing is done using Google Calendars. It's all hosted on a Google site, which is the other thing that you get with it, the ability to build websites. When we first started using G Suite, it was usable. It was okay if you were relatively IT savvy, but you still had to understand some concepts of web building. Now they've released what they refer to as new sites, and it's so easy. We've got, in fact, I've actually got my 7-year-old daughter building a website using Google Sites. It's that very simple drag and drop. You want an image in here, drag it in. It's very, very simple. So all these tools come as part of G Suite, and signing up for it is free. Commissioning it is very, very simple. Nowadays it was difficult when we first started off, but it's been streamlined tremendously. We automatically provision our accounts from our SIMS database. We use a product called Salamander, which we already had, so I'm not counting that as the cost for Google because we already use that. And it just allows us to, as an IT team, to have everything automated. So a new learner starts, and providing they've got a UPN, everything is just created for them. Their Active Directory account is created, their Google account is created, the memberships of all the groups are done. Because the other thing that Google has allowed us to do that we couldn't do before is to have a usable VLE, because they've got a product called Google Classroom. Has anybody heard of or used Google Classroom? Yeah. Has anybody used it? Sorry, those of you know. What do you think?
It's just it's like a shared folder, isn't it?
Yeah, basically. I mean, all it's doing is managing permissions at the end of the day. But the thing that really makes it transformative for teachers is that they can create one document, and Classroom automatically makes a copy of that document for everybody in their class, shares it with them, appends their name to the name of the document, and sets the permissions so that they can edit it, and then puts a button on the top saying hand in. When they filled the document in, they click hand in and the teacher gets notified, and it's really, really powerful. And it's not jumping through hoops to make it work. It's a few clicks and you've got everything going out to your students. So teachers absolutely love Google Classroom. In fact, our SLT have recently bought a product called Doddle. Anybody heard of Doddle? Yeah, and teachers have been rioting about the fact that they've now got to put all the homework on Doddle when they want to use Google Classroom. It's a bit of a step backwards, but SLT knows best, don't they? And then over and above all these things, there is the Google Play Store, which has a plethora of add-ons and extensions to further enhance what the core Google Suite offers you. So pretty much anything you want to do, you can find something to add on to what it offers you to achieve what you're looking for. Mail merge is a perfect example. Somebody came to me, well, I can't use Google because it doesn't do mail merges and I need to do that as part of my job. Yeah, it does. Just find the add-on and download it and away you go. And in a lot of ways it's better because you have a choice of what add-on you want to put in to suit your purposes rather than using the core functionality in Microsoft Office. Okay, so what have we done with Google? Why have we transformed? How have we transformed the way that we work? Well, we, like a number of schools, used to have a lesson observation system. Again, this is another one that SLT chose to buy. The idea was that we're also a training school, so the idea was that we film lessons and then the teachers can watch those back, see what they did well, what they may not have done so well. They can share it with colleagues and get their feedback on it. So our lesson observation system, again, I'm trying to be polite and not mention too many names, but I think the icon's on here somewhere down the line. It just wasn't used because the interface was horrible. The cameras were great. The concept of recording them was accepted by the teachers. I know some schools, teaching staff have been less than comfortable with that, but our teachers were fine with it. But it was just so horrible to use to book an observation and then to share that footage with somebody at the end of the session. And it also meant that those teachers were having to detract from their lessons to set the observation going. So when that came up for renewal, we decided that we were going to decapitate what was the big stand with a camera on top of it. So we took that off and we've basically used the hardware but created our own Google site on which you can fill in a Google form to request a lesson observation. And we also use another Google tool, YouTube, which some people are surprised to find that Google own that as well because they're everywhere. We use YouTube to host it. It's hosted privately. All the permissions are set so that only the person who's been recorded can view it unless they put a request in to share it with their faculty or with their mentor or external, and they have the power over that footage as to what they want to do with it. And then we host it on our lesson studies site, and the video footage after a lesson observation is normally up and accessible to the teacher, having been re-encoded, uploaded to YouTube and embedded in this page within about 20 minutes to half an hour. So that's working really, really well. We found that we had more observations taken in 4 months after we went down the Google route than we'd had in the 3 years previously that we used the product that I'm not going to mention. That's called Iris, by the way. So yeah, that's been really, really useful, and teachers love it because they just fill in a form. One of myself or my technicians rocks up, sets it up, presses record, disappears, and then we just collect it's all iPad-based, iPod-based, the one that we're using now. We come back, collect that in, upload it, and it's ready to go for them. So that's been really, really useful to the teachers. The other thing that they love, self-marking quizzes. What teacher doesn't love something that means that they can spend more time drinking wine and less time doing marking? You can create, either using Google Forms or various other tools, you can create worksheets that students fill in, and not only does it send the answers to the teacher, if the teacher puts the answers into the form and they create it, it sends immediate feedback to the students as to what they got right, what they got wrong. And teachers now are starting to understand that they can then put further links into extra resources. So if you're delivering a biology homework and somebody's got a question on cell structure wrong, we just link to a YouTube video on cell structure so that they can review their learning and improve the skills that they were deficient upon. Teachers love it, like I say, because it just takes a lot of the work away from them. I'm aware that that's not suitable for all subjects. The English teachers keep throwing their noses up in the air when I suggest to them about self-marking quizzes. However, things like reading assessments are tremendously quicker now for the English staff, because we just digitised the paper copies that they used to use, created as a Google form, and the kids are all so familiar with using things like the Chromebooks now that they're just on it and they get it done. They're getting it done quicker than they were doing the paper exams. So that's been really, really beneficial to the teachers. I've already mentioned about the Choose Your Own Adventure sessions that the staff have done. And we've also got a book review site now. So we've kicked off a reading scheme where we're asking each student to read 10 books in a term and to fill in a quick review. And again, that's done using a Google form. So they've put in the name of the book, the author, their name, and a short paragraph review, and give it a star rating. It takes them 10 minutes to fill in a book review, but then that's all hosted on our LRC website, which brings through because we've got the name and the author, it brings through the cover of the book, and it just presents it in a really nice way, and we're seeing a lot of traffic going through to that now as a result of it. So it's really helping students to engage with reading and actually to fill in a result at the end of it, because they want to be seen on these sites. And I think the librarian started a review of the week or review of the month competition as well. So we're seeing more and more reviews published to this site as well. What else have we got? So best teachers, I would guess. Is anybody in here a teacher, or do we all have proper jobs? Yeah, cool. So the things that we're more bothered about, so the admin processes. So we've digitised our cover request process. So again, teachers click on a link on our intranet site, fill in a form requesting cover, and then that gets automatically emailed to the cover manager and the deputy head who's in charge of authorising it. So that's all streamlined and more importantly traceable. We used to have a paper-based cover system, and a number of teachers who we had saying to us, I put a cover request in last week, you must have lost it. So we're using Google Forms. So everything is hosted on Google Sites. So that's our intranet, if you like. And then we just created a Google form. What Google does when you create a Google form is it populates a Google Sheet, which is like an Excel document. And then within the Google Sheet, people can subscribe to notifications. So we automatically subscribe for the people who need to see it to the notification. So every time a change is made to that sheet, i.e. somebody fills in a form, they get an email notification. And then we just put a link on there so that they can just say approve or deny, and then that feeds it back via email again automatically to the teacher. So that's cover request. We're also looking into, now this is something that we're shamelessly stealing from another school who's done this. We're looking at potential savings in terms of how we deliver cover lessons. We've not actually put this in place yet, but we're discussing it. One school that we've worked with, instead of having a cover teacher go into each lesson that requires cover, they send all the students down to a central area. So in our case, it's going to be our dining hall. They have one member of staff there and a load of Chromebooks. The member of staff who's ill and therefore setting the cover sets the cover on Google Classroom. So the material is there for the students to access. And then the idea is that we can leverage savings by having one member of staff covering 3 or 4 classes potentially, rather than having 4 members of staff covering that way. Like I say, we're going to give it a try. It's not something that we've done yet, but from speaking to this other school that's done it, they reckon they saved about 60 grand in their first year of doing that on cover costs. Now I don't know what their levels of absence were like, to be honest, but it's something that we're going to look into the feasibility of. We've just this year started, we've digitised our student sign-in process, so any students that turn up late have to go through the student entrance, and we now have an iPad in there where they select their year group, their family, because we run vertical registrations rather than year group registrations. Select the year group and their family. It shows, that narrows them down to one of 5 or 6 people. It shows the photographs of those 6 people so that they just tap on their face, so hopefully they know what they look like. And then they just fill it. That then takes them to a pre-filled Google form, and all they need to do is put in the reason for them being late. Again, that then notifies the attendance manager, and it also notifies the class teacher of the lesson that they're going to be late to, that somebody has just signed in, so that they have advance notification that they should be arriving at their lesson. And again, it's amazing how many kids we find have been signing in late and then just going for a wander around the school rather than going into the lesson, that have been caught out with this process. The next thing that we're going to do with that is transfer that to be a visitor management system. So again, we will have a Google site with essentially 2 buttons on there, a sign in and a sign out. You go to sign in, it takes you to a Google form that you fill in, and if you go to sign out, it takes you off that list. So for our fire registers and so on and so forth, we just have an iPad available in reception, and they can see there and then who's signed in and who's signed out for that day's visitors. I've already mentioned that we use it for resource booking, so the icons on the left, we use it for lesson studies, we use it for booking IT resources, we use it for booking minibuses and for booking IT rooms and conference rooms, and that works tremendously well. And again, that's just hosting Google Forms on a Google site that links to a Google Calendar, so everybody can see whether something's available before they book it, and there's no contention over a resource using this system. One of the significant savings that we've made is replacing our Exchange server. So we used to have a big server full of disks that ran 24/7 and cost a lot of money to maintain when something went wrong, to run our Microsoft Exchange server, which is our email server. So last summer we decided to migrate that to cloud-based email system. So we put that up into the cloud, and now everything runs on Gmail, and it's been absolutely flawless. I was really worried, if I'm honest, about moving gigabytes and gigabytes of data up into the cloud, but it's been absolutely flawless. It's been a breeze, and it's so much easier to manage now than using PowerShell scripts on Exchange servers. And further to that, because the other thing I didn't mention, Google gives you, as an education establishment, it gives you unlimited cloud storage. So you don't no longer have a limit as to what you can store up there. So we take, our backup regime has changed now. So we have a disk-to-disk backup, and then we dump that second backup up into the cloud. So in the event of nuclear war or whatever, strike on Rochdale, which clearly would be the first place to be hit by the Koreans, we're going to have that cloud-based backup, so we can, it's going to take time to get specific information back down, but we at least have that data off-site and secure and encrypted. We've also created a governors reporting portal. So we pull through, all our data goes through into Google Sheets, and that pulls through as a live stream to the governor's site. So if changes to data are made on the day, normally on the day of the governor's meeting, that's automatically updated. It doesn't need my intervention. As of, we're in September, so as of last July, 3 governors have used that resource. So you can't win them all, can you? But getting governors to do anything, and I say this as a school governor myself, is quite difficult, isn't it? We use it for self-certification, so we've now just introduced, so rather than fill in the, I think it was 2003 form that Rochdale LEA used for filling in your reason for absence and your payroll number and that kind of thing, we've digitised that as well, and that all gets stored centrally and backed up to the cloud as well. We have got rid of another product that I can't say, Schools Asset Manager, and we now do all that based on Google Forms and Google Sheets. So much easier to use as somebody who uses the asset management system, and so much easier to find what we're looking for, and you can put formula in there for depreciation and so on and so forth. And finally, we're now running our help desk through Google Forms as well. So everything basically runs on our intranet site, which is a Google site, which leverages the power of all the other Google tools. The site manager, when I first told him that we were going to put his job requests through this system, said, it's no good, we won't get the human touch. I won't be able to sit down and have a brew and a bicky with everybody to find out what they really need me to do. And I said, well, yeah, that's kind of part of the problem though, isn't it, Adam? We need to get you actually off your backside doing some work rather than sitting in your office having a brew. About 6 weeks after we put this in place, he came to me and said, Dave, he said, I can't believe how much more work we're getting through now as a result of this, because we're not being, what was his words, we're not being held back by the teachers wanting to talk to us all the time. So, people can change. But that has been, again, it's just filling in. This is a choose your own adventure. Where's your problem? It's in a classroom, and then it takes you to a page, which classroom? What's your problem? And it just all walks through in that way. So business managers want to know what's the savings? What have we leveraged through this? Printing costs. In the first year, we saved £8,000 on printing, just by sharing resources digitally rather than printing them out for the sake of it. Our lesson observation system, which I didn't call Iris, but was Iris, that cost us £12,500 when we brought into that. So that's a saving that I'm ticking up against Google as well. We've saved, if we were to buy VLEs again, we're probably saving about 25 grand on what we had previously. Visitor management, for the 2 entry points that we would have needed, we're probably looking at saving about £6,000 there. Asset management, £3,000. Digital signage, we've done digital signage through Google as well. So we just publish a Google Slides, which is a PowerPoint presentation, publish a Google Slide document to the web, and from there we have devices. I think we just use Raspberry Pis connected to a TV that's just automatically, when they turn them on, go to that website, and it just cycles through. We were quoted during BSF by Capita £18,000 for a digital signage solution. So we already had probably 8 or 10 TVs lying around. So Raspberry Pi, sorry, I've not told you the cost of the Raspberry Pis for this. I think they're about 30 quid each, aren't they? So that's another £300. So I'm up to nearly £1,000 that I've spent on transforming all these things now. So yeah, our digital signage solution works flawlessly as well. The next thing that I want to look at reducing is our Microsoft licensing cost. We're currently part of the EAS licensing with Microsoft, which probably costs us about £5,000 a year. But because we're moving more and more things to Chrome-based, to Chrome OS and to Chromebooks, we're going to look at potentially replacing teacher and student PCs with Chrome-based devices. It's not a saving that I can chalk up to Google yet, but potentially we might have that Microsoft licensing cost. So I realise I'm running quite low on time now, so we'll just skip through to the important parts. What have we learned through going through this? Like I say, when we started this process, we were in the middle of BSF, so I didn't plan it tremendously well, I have to say. I hold my hands up to that. But these are the lessons that come through. Getting the backing of SLT is key. We had a couple of members of SLT who really bought into this and were really strong supporters of Google. But unfortunately, the head teacher and one of the other members of SLT were probably, I think he'd be happy with me saying, a bit more of a Luddite, and a little bit more reluctant to see technological change be enforced upon them. So if I could have my time over again, I would probably spend more time getting that SLT back in place and really drive home to them what the advantages would be. Training for staff is also very important to get in place early. We have pockets of staff who are way behind the early adopters. So what I've done to try and sort that out is start to introduce one-to-one coaching sessions with myself and my team. So if somebody's struggling, they just give us a shout and we go and spend an hour with them, bringing them up to speed. And that's worked really well. The small group sessions and the one-to-one sessions are far more productive than trying to do training to your whole staff. It's what teachers are familiar with. It's differentiation. Some of them are bored because they know exactly what you're talking about, and others it's going right over their head. If you are going to go this way, make sure that you've got a reliable internet connection. If you're out in the sticks and you're getting 1 meg download speeds, you're going to struggle. But if you've got a reliable internet connection, I actually put in a backup internet connection as well when we moved our Exchange server. Touch wood, we've never had to use it, but you are very reliant on the internet. So if you're in an area where you're prone to internet outages, you might need to think about some other solutions to go alongside any changes that you decide to make. We went for a gradual approach. We actually deployed some of these things by stealth. Our original Google Sites-based intranet, we branded to look just like the old one, but just started moving people into using things like Google Calendars without knowing it. And then when we told them that we were launching it, and you get those people saying, oh no, something else we've got to learn to use. Just say, well, you're already using it. So gradually rolling things out worked really well for us as well. Share the experiences of other schools. We've got schools around the country that we tap into their experience and advice, and we have schools coming to us for help and advice as well. There's no point in reinventing the wheel if somebody's already done it. And another thing that worked tremendously well for us is I created what's called a digital champion scheme, where we trained some students up. So we wanted at least 2 students in every class who were comfortable with using all the various Google tools, so that when the staff were struggling, they had somebody with a badge on to go to saying, just give us a hand sorting this out, will you? And that was really powerful because the students loved the responsibility of it, and the staff felt that they could ask somebody who was already in their class rather than needing to wait for one of the technicians to come out to help them. So, I've talked a lot there. Before I let you go, because it's a perfect opportunity, this good-looking gentleman here who stood behind you, this is Rick, who set up the ANME. Those of you in an IT capacity, I know one or two of you have already been along to us, may already be members. We are just network managers and IT managers working in schools. But as I've just been saying with Google, we like to share best practices, we like to share our experiences and to support each other. It's completely free to join. There are 3 meetings a term in each region, and it's tremendously powerful and tremendously beneficial to be a member of. If you're interested, come along to the stall that we've got outside and sign up. No obligation, doesn't cost you anything, you won't get spammed, and you can just sit back and look at the portal and look what's going on if you want to. The website, should you need it, is anme.co.uk, or you can contact us via @theANME on Twitter. So, looking at the time, I think we're just about getting to there where we need to be. If you've got any questions, feel free to ask them now, or come and see me on the stand. I'll be on the ANME stand this afternoon, or by all means, like I say, reach out to me via those methods. Yes, sir.
One question, David.
Certainly.
We use Google Docs.
Okay.
We love it. But everybody gets worried about it, especially if they've just done the new Data Protection Act.
Yep.
Where do Google store our information?
Okay. So Google have a series of data farms around the world. What was it called? Safe Harbor mean anything to you? Yeah. So there was a piece of legislation that was referred to as Safe Harbor, which was ultimately proven to be not worth the back of the fag packet that it was written on. But as part of that, Google committed to storing all of your information within the European Union. Furthermore, you can, on the back end, the Google admin panel, you can explicitly request that they don't share any information with the Russians, which I find quite interesting. I know it's a point of contention for all cloud-based information, but my understanding is that Google storage is one of, if not the most compliant areas of storage for school data. Obviously, I would say that I'm not working for Google, so don't take my word for it, do your research into it before you make any decisions. But I've satisfied myself that my school data is safe on the Google servers. But of course, that's got to be a decision for each individual school and network manager.
Basically, contact Google.
Yeah, and just
as soon as you move over to education, they keep you in the union.
Absolutely, yeah.
So
Yeah.
it doesn't get sent to America.
Yeah, I mean, the reason that they have it outside the UK at all is exactly for that disaster recovery purpose. But everything that I've read suggests that it's compliant with all legislation that we need to be compliant with at this stage. GDPR coming in, of course, is going to make things interesting in many ways, but that's as much a paper exercise as it is a digital exercise because of all the information that we're storing. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Any other questions for the moment? I thank you all for your time. I hope you have an enjoyable rest of the day. Come and see us on the ANME stall.
We'll share this presentation on the portal as well, so if any of you are IT guys, you'll have access to it through there if you join.
Okay, thanks guys.
Amend your report so you get one bundled up into one of those. It all depends on yeah.
Thank you, thanks for coming.
So the battery suddenly went low on the camera, that's why I've dived to the
It
back.
looks like it's still